Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM. And check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
Welcome back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. I'm Kevin Bowen, Joey Molinaro. As always, across the way. My voice still struggling, man. I was at a bachelor party in Nashville, and I feel like I don't fully got it back yet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I can tell. Sounds like it, but it must have been you had a hell of a time.
Yeah, it was. Some of us probably had better or worse times, depending on how you look at it. But survive in advance with those. You know, pray that I don't have too many more left in the rest of my life, because I don't know how many more I got in me.
You got a plan one here soon.
I do, yeah. I got Ryan Bowen's Bachelor coming up in May. So, yeah, we're gonna do French Lick.
Ooh.
Get a little golf
course. There you go.
Get a little gambling action.
Figures. That's very fitting for the Bowen clan.
Right. You ever been down there?
I haven't. My dad loved it, though.
Did he?
Yeah.
You aren't a huge casino gambler?
I can get into it. You know, if we're doing it, let's do it. I have fun with it.
We did it at our work party. We had a little casino night here at Emmis, and that was a fun time. But in all, yeah, I mean, Nashville is it is a great city, but man, they will take your wallet and they will seek out vulnerability and try to expose that.
Yeah, they'll do that, and they'll beat up your body. Really, it's just an all in all. You get beaten up on all ends.
You do, and there's almost so much country music that can soothe you back to health. But here I am, Tuesday afternoon. Okay. All right, 3, 2, 1. But here we are, Tuesday afternoon, back, another edition of the pod. Joey, it's crazy that we are 2 weeks away from the NFL Combine, and then just under a little bit over a month away from free agency starting. And this is like the last lull of the offseason. I shouldn't say that. Like early April can kind of be a bit of a lull, but think about it. Combine, February 25th. That's about a week, and then you get into early March rumors and re-signings and things like that. Then free agency starts, and that's a hectic week or two. And then, boom, you have early April, kind of a quiet period. And then OTAs start mid-April, and boom, the NFL draft April 23rd. So we are about to get into it a little bit more. So on today's pod, I wanted to look at some of those potential free agents. I know a lot of people are very curious week in and week out. Just like, okay, give me some names. And there are some names that definitely intrigue me that I think that there could potentially be some mutual interest in as well from the Colts standpoint. So we will hit on that. Twitter questions, as always. And then I guess we should probably start off with a potential this would be a cannonball type splash the Colts could make in free agency.
Right. And you have an article up on 1075thefan.com right now detailing that. Plus, we've seen the rumors, we've seen the reports yesterday from Ian Rappaport about how Phillip Rivers, that's right, Phillip Rivers mutually parted ways with the Chargers after all these years, how he could be a fit here in Indianapolis. What are your thoughts?
Phil. You know, we touched on it a few podcasts ago. I don't think we've really had a full segment on. I think it was just a Twitter question a few weeks back. But I think a couple things of why we are going to contribute a segment to it right now. For one, the Chargers announced yesterday that they will not be bringing back Phil, that's with one L, Phillip Rivers, for I think a 17th NFL season. I believe he's been in the league for 16 years. So they're moving on. And I think this is kind of widely known, but again, to hear a team say that a month before free agency, it's not the most normal thing in the world. Granted, Phillip Rivers has, produced a career for that franchise that deserves, I think, to, have the team let him know this, well before free agency starts. And then when you see a lot of the national pundits and reports indicate that they feel like the Colts could be the best fit or would be the best fit, whatever you want to call it, that brings to a lot of attention around where Rivers could end up. So post something on 1075thefan.com, kind of weighing the pros and cons of, Phillip Rivers and a move to Indianapolis. And I guess before I get into those, let me reiterate what I've said now for several podcasts. I'm much more team draft versus team free agent when you're trying to fill the quarterback need. So I will stand by that because I think this is a long-term issue that you have to look into with just a tremendous amount of resources that you do have during the draft. But I think a reason why people are connecting the dots and why there are some possible pros for this move, which, man, judging by my Twitter feed right now, I don't know if anyone out there believes there are many pros. I mean, there are a lot of people that are like, F that. Like, that is the worst move in the world. But I think it's worth giving some merit to. So the Frank Reich connection is by far the most important and I think easy to kind of compare reason for why such a marriage would make sense. Frank Reich was the quarterback's coach in San Diego in 2013. Rivers had a career-high completion percentage. The next 2 years, Reich was the offensive coordinator, and ironically enough, Nick Sirianni, I believe, was the wideouts coach for the Chargers before that. He then moved over to be the quarterback's coach. So your two most important offensive decision-makers in your organization have direct familiarity with Phillip Rivers. Now, it's not just that they coach this guy, it's that they gush over this guy. Frank Reich has made various comments over the year, whether it was back in his days in San Diego of saying he didn't realize how smart Rivers was until he got there and feels like he's one of the top 10 smartest players in the NFL, regardless of position. And then even this past September, when these two teams met, Colts and Chargers, in that week one matchup out in L.A., you had Reich saying, and I'll quote here, "Phillip is an elite quarterback in this league. He has proven that year in and year out. He is a tough competitor. He is everything you want in a quarterback. He is elite. Elite accuracy, elite toughness, playmaking."
That's gushing.
Frank Reich loves him, so Phillip Rivers loves him. Think about the traits that we talk about, Joey. Like, that is something that I think we have to acknowledge as well. We mentioned it. For those that missed it in written form, it's up on our website. But we've definitely talked about it at various points in this podcast. There are specific quarterback traits that Frank Reich, Nick Sirianni, and Chris Ballard see in elite quarterbacks. For Reich, it's accuracy, it's cognitive ability, and then it's kind of just toughness / leadership. And I think you can kind of throw both of those into the same bag. I mean, listen to that quote he just said. He is elite accuracy, elite toughness, play. I mean, there are exact quotes. And again, before people just turn off the podcast, we will make the argument about this dude is 38 years old. Oh, yeah. And how elite is he really? And how much of an improvement is this really? But, I think that there is a very real possibility of there's still a lot of mutual love between Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers. So in a way, I almost feel like, is this more of a Reich move if it were to happen than a Ballard move? I mean, obviously Ballard would have to sign off, but this goes back to the, collaboration with your coaching staff and all of that. So, I mean, from an accuracy standpoint, Rivers has been, I think he was 68% last year, 66% the year before. Those are numbers that are better than obviously what you have here in Jacoby Brissett. And then lastly, I think we can acknowledge, and this is in the pro category before we move on to cons, I think Phillip Rivers, if you're going to go play a game of football tomorrow, I think he would be an improvement over Jacoby Brissett. I think it's an improvement over the current situation. It's a little bit difficult, I think, just to look at Rivers' numbers last year and immediately plug him into the Colts offense and be like, oh my gosh, this would be a 10-win football team with him under center. Couple things. The skill talent Phillip Rivers played with for the Chargers, much better than what the Colts have. I mean, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry, a banged-up T.Y. Hilton versus a Zach Pascal and a Jack Doyle. Like, I think we can all consider that the Chargers' skill talent is better. Now, having said that, the offensive line, nowhere near the same level. So I think that's something that, saying that Rivers is an improvement over Jacoby Brissett, I don't think that's a hyperbole. I think the more difficult question, again, is just how much of an improvement is Phillip Rivers. And again, this is a 2020 answer that I'm going with. I'm not talking 5-10 years down the road. I'm talking the here and now. It's an improvement, I think, over your current situation.
So where would Chris Ballard fit into that, though? Because you mentioned everything about Reich, but then the next question, like we talked about, is, okay, is there any inclination of how Ballard feels?
And I think that this is where maybe Reich is more in the pro camp, just based on, past comments. And there is evidence of why Frank Reich would like Phillip Rivers. And there's evidence for Chris Ballard liking him. But then also, it comes down to me where Ballard might fall more into the con category. Strictly just comes from, this is a Band-Aid move. This is a quick fix. You are gushing blood, and you are putting a cocktail napkin over the cut, and it's not stopping it. Like, that's what this is. Because to me, when I talk about quarterback, I think it's that important. We talked about it on last week's podcast. I just have that much, belief that quarterback means so much for NFL teams that this would be a 2-year stopgap. Rivers said that yesterday. He mentioned, or earlier this week, I think Sam Farmer from the LA Times had it, that this is a 2-year max thing. Phillip Rivers said 2 year at the most he will play. Possibility just 1 year. He's like, I'm going to play 1 year and stink and decide to retire. I mean, well, that sounds awful if you're a Colts fan.
What a great pitch for your free agency.
Right? So that's where I am at. It's the biggest con. This is a 38-year-old quarterback that doesn't achieve Chris Ballard's famous phrase of sustained success. Now, having said that, what happens if you coupled a signing of Rivers with the 13th overall pick on a young quarterback?
Then what do you do with Jacoby?
And we'll get into that. Let's hold off on that into some Twitter questions because I did a little gaze on that, and I think we'll get a few. But let's just say, if you had Rivers for 2020 and maybe 2021, and you draft Jordan Love at 13, now are you cooking with a little bit more of what fans like?
I like that recipe a lot better.
So, and that is hey, we're not going to wait to try and win or at least improve our quarterback position for 2 more years when potentially Jordan Love would be ready, or insert whatever quarterback you want to there. That, to me, would be an absolute must. If you make this signing, you still need to look at the draft and be 100% honest with you, because one thing that I want to keep on coming back to is, while the 2020 quarterback class, that might not offer this crystal clear quarterback of like, that is our guy. We got to go get him. You also have to be honest with yourself and say, what happens if you go win 10 games next year? And all of a sudden, you're drafting 10 spots lower. That Washington pick that's sitting there at 34, that's out the window. You're not in the same sort of resource situation. Now you've given Phillip Rivers $20 million a year, and you've paid some other people, and you don't have this abundance of cap space. So that's, I think, what we have to come back to in being honest of saying this signing better not stunt the long-term view at quarterback for the Colts. To me, I think they should double back on it if they were to make this move. And again, this is a big if, but I feel like you would have to look at the draft with a similar view. And then, of course, you run into it, all right, you've spent that money on Rivers, you've handed that draft pick to a quarterback, where are you taking care of some of these other needs? Which are all fair questions. Another thing is, what's left in Phillip Rivers' tank? Is he a guy that is driving back from the bachelor party on a Sunday and he's got nothing? He's got nothing but the couch. He's going couch. He's going to get Donato's Pizza when he gets home, and he's going to hope the wife is gone and just say, give me the remote. There's basketball on. I'll be asleep by the time the Oscars come on. Or is he, hey, I got one more night in me. I'm gonna go to Post Malone tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Is he feeling like all of a sudden full throttle? I'm gonna make sure that I prove to everybody out there that the Phillip Rivers maybe we saw 2 years ago is still there.
Yeah.
Now Rivers, he certainly has a career that will be Hall of Fame debated at some point. But the biggest knock on him will be the lack of playoff success. It's a bit crazy to me, Joey, that Phillip Rivers has made the postseason, and then the Chargers made the postseason one time in the last 6 years. I mean, in the last 6 years, do you think the Chargers have had more overall talent than the Colts?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the last 3.
Right. And one time.
Yeah. But what's interesting, though, is that, he hasn't gotten to the pinnacle, but then, I mean, Colts fans know very well. He's been in especially early in his career, he was in the postseason a lot, and then he was always toying with it. He would beat the Colts a couple times.
Yeah.
He would be in the divisional round, lose to the Patriots in the AFC Championship. So,
but again, are we getting into the Vinatieri debate where it's like we can't judge this guy off of 5-10 years ago? And I know, injuries, we can't. He's been the most durable player, one of the most durable players in NFL history, 224 straight starts. But this is not, 2007, 2008, Phillip Rivers beating the Colts in the playoffs both the years. This is a guy that has won one playoff game in the last 6 years with what we think is a pretty talented roster. Or at least that wasn't necessarily the thing holding that team back so much. And that's where you get into my last point of how much of an improvement is Rivers. Of do you get into 2 years down the road where you've signed him, you haven't drafted another quarterback, you've maybe won 8 or 9 games, 10 games, who knows, but you still haven't done anything in the terms of sustained success, the long-term answer at quarterback, or found even short-term success. You can't. I don't look at this Colts team and think, wow, they were 7-9 with Jacoby Brissett. Phillip Rivers, they go 12-4, and they get to the AFC title game. I don't say that.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that. I think it comes back to you're getting into the quarterback purgatory, and you want to avoid that.
Even if they draft somebody at 13 who's their guy?
Okay, you could maybe talk me into that a little bit more, and I would need to see support come via free agency and other draft picks as well to solve some of these needs. And I don't see Chris Ballard panicking and being like, hey, we have got, if we feel like we can go from 7-9 to 8-8, we're going to do it. I don't think he looks at it necessarily like that, because there are Rivers cons of him. If you look at his interception rate, last 4 years, I think he's finished top 5 twice in terms of, most picks, most passes intercepted. It just, some people probably sit here, Joey, and think to themselves, I want no part of, I'd rather see Chad Kelly, which sounds crazy, but some people might say, I'd rather see Chad Kelly and you tank or whatever than see Phillip Rivers and you go 9-7. Some people might say, now other people might be like, screw that. I want to cheer for some wins and get to the month of December and think to myself, hey, this football team could still make the playoffs.
I like to see Phillip Rivers play behind an offensive line like this. And I'd like to see Phillip Rivers play a home game for once in his career. Right? Who knows if that's a difference in, three or more wins or whatever, making the Colts 10-6 or 11-5 with him. But I don't know. I feel like, Kevin, I know you'll give your opinion probably, but I just really do. I think that if that's going to be the case, Colts fans can't feel too bad about having a guy like that come in for a year or two, trade up and get a guy, or draft somebody at 13 and be like, okay, with Rivers and with this roster, we're still going to be in the heat of things without having to go through an awkward quarterback transition where we suck.
Yeah. I don't. Okay, I'm not like, this is the dumbest move in the world, like, what the hell is going on? I don't look at it like that. I'm definitely not in love with it by any means because, again, I like the longer-term view. I personally like throwing a quarterback into the fire a little bit more. Phillip Rivers, I don't know if he strikes me as maybe the greatest groomer in the world. I mean, This is a competitive, what, that is going to be wanting to have all his eggs in the basket of trying to win. So, and again, how much better is he than Jacoby Brissett? Yes, he's playing behind a better offensive line, but also how many plays did Brissett make just keeping things alive last year? Yeah. Phillip Rivers can't move. I would beat Phillip Rivers in a 40-yard dash.
If he comes here, we definitely got to try to set that up.
We do. Yeah, I just felt my hamstring tighten up as soon as I said that. Definitely quicker rhythm. Jacoby took the ball, really struggled to get rid of the ball at times last year, and Rivers has always been the guy that gets rid of the ball very quickly. So it's a debate, we'll probably have for the next month. I don't sit here and say there's some great suitors out there for Rivers.
That's another thing.
Right, which I know that's why the odds makers in Vegas have put the Colts, and I think the Bucs seem to be the other most likely fit as well. But, I mean, there's evidence from a yards per attempt, from a completion percentage, that this would be an immediate upgrade. How long of an upgrade? Not very long. How much of an upgrade? That's to be debated as well. And, man, going to be fun next month.
Let's keep it going with the free agency talk here, KB. We've seen over full list of 2020 free agents sorted by the position coming up in the NFL in a month from now. So let's just stay talking about the quarterback. We've talked about Phillip Rivers. Who are some of the other guys?
Yeah, and we won't hit on every position here, but we'll definitely hit on a few of the key ones that I feel like the Colts have the most needs in. Quarterback, to me, I've kind of always said it, Bridgewater would be the guy that I would pursue a little bit more. Now, again, does he have a ceiling of a guy that you think is a top 10 quarterback in this league? Because that's the type of money I think Teddy Bridgewater would command on the open market. I think that...
Going to try to cash in.
Yeah, exactly. Some team is going to say, all right, this is it. Like, you are our guy. So he's the main guy I like, Joey, but honestly, I know that quarterback list has some intriguing names, but, Matthew Stafford or David Carr via trade, maybe. Again, I don't love either of those two, but those other free agents, Tannehill, Mariota, Breeze, Brady, Winston, no. I am team draft a quarterback.
For sure. Over those options, yeah, without a doubt. All right, let's go down to receiver. And I put it up on 1075thefan.com, an article that you can find too, that people were examining if the Colts signed Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, or A.J. Green. AJ, not all of them together, obviously, but just what would happen if they were to go there. A.J. Green, one of the receivers that's out on the market this year.
He is, and when you look at that list, Joey, it's bleak. It is not a bunch of household names.
Top heavy, but then bleak.
Right. Yeah, there are a couple names at the top, and obviously with A.J. Green, you got to debate injury, and you got to debate age. Amari Cooper is, to me, the clear-cut number one guy on that list. We talked about it on last week's podcast. Mike Groh, the new wideouts coach, having some past history. I think he was either involved in the recruitment of Cooper or coached him at least for a year at Alabama. So, that is something to try and connect some dots to. But, I mean, the group is sad. It is a sad group of wideouts. Robbie Anderson, Joey, he seems like a signing that would get a GM fired. There is some potential. I think there is some, but man, would he make you sleep uneasy at night?
For sure.
And
especially
you wouldn't be
big money.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be handing him Cooper type money, but you'd be handing him, I'd assume, Funchess type money from last year,
sure.
and you probably be, tack a few more years onto that. So, I mean, outside of the group, it's a couple names that I'm like, would you kick the tires on a Laquan Treadwell, former first round pick? Again,
I don't really know what good that's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you aren't giving him anything of significant value. DeAnthony Thomas, is a former Chief that, could give you maybe some playmaking with the ball in his hands. But no, it's a group that it goes back to why I think Funch is coming back is a possibility.
What about Nelson Aguilar?
Yeah, he was a name I thought about. Obviously, Reich being in Philly.
Seems like kind of a Ballard signing, too, similar to Funchess. Maybe change scenery, young.
For sure, and that's what I was kind of getting at with Treadwell, of like these former first-round picks that Ebron, obviously, you would throw in. And I am all for, like, Vic Beasley. We get that question so often. I'm all for that. Like, literally, I mean, kick tires on these guys. I'm not saying 3 years, $30 million.
Especially if they're going to be cheap,
Cheap, bring them in, kick those tires, and move on. But Aguilar, yes. Who'd you rather have, Funchess or Aguilar?
I'm watching the Eagles All or Nothing right now on Amazon Prime, and Aguilar's not doing himself any favors. But
Funchess didn't do himself any favors on that All or Nothing last year.
It just, from what I've seen, like it just seems like it might be a better fit. And then the connection, like you mentioned, with Reich and everything, I think would be big. And it seems like one of those that you could say, oh, okay, yeah, and then he could come in and change the scenery. Plus, being back with Frank Reich could be a good thing.
Even Mike Groh, who came over from Philly. He was the Eagles offensive coordinator and their wideouts coach before Frank Reich took the job here in Indianapolis. So, again, a group that I just don't love at all, to be honest with you.
Some interesting names on the tight end list.
And I think this list, Joey, outside of defensive line, I feel like this has the best option of younger guys that have high-end number one sort of potential, which that's hard to find in free agency. We know that. But this position group, I think, has that with Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry. Both guys are 25. Henry has given big play potential. Start the Phillip Rivers, Hunter Henry package to Indianapolis.
Sure.
Hooper's been a guy that, how much has he benefited from? Obviously, a lot of attention to Julio Jones and one of the deeper wideout groups in the NFL.
In the article that I summed up from ESPN that predicted the 2020 offseason, when the domino happened of the Colts signing Phillip Rivers, also part of that was they bring in Austin Hooper. So, whatever that means. But
yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably more team draft a tight end just because I feel like, I don't know, I always think today's college game has afforded you some really nice, the hybrid sort of receiving tight ends. But having said that, there are some tight ends in the free agency group that we won't even get into some of the names, but Hooper and Henry being really atop that list that I think could be good fits here. So this is a group that I think is a little bit more intriguing than most on the offensive side of the ball.
Switching over to defense, a lot of big names, literally and physically, on the D-line front.
Yeah, that's an understatement, man. I mean, where to even begin? Jadeveon Clowney, Yannick Ngakoue, Eric Armstead, Chris Jones, the past former high draft picks of Beasley or Shaq Lawson or Leonard Williams, Shaq Barrett. I mean, I'd be stunned if the Colts came out of free agency and didn't make a move that was somewhat notable on the defensive line. I just think there is different flavors, whether it's more straight interior, more straight D-end, more of a hybrid 3 technique, different ages, different schemes. I mean, there is a lot that you can look into at this defensive line position. And you're bringing in a new D-line coach in Brian Baker. Who knows if he is went to high school with a Brian Baker.
We work with a Brian Baker.
We do.
Yeah.
Gosh, great call.
Yeah.
No one probably gives two shits about either of those tidbits, but there are some names, Joey, and there's a variety of contracts I think you could hand out, and I am a big fan of tapping into this group in free agency. Clowney and Armstead and Jones stand out to me. Ngakoue, from a pass rush standpoint, he's right up there in terms of potential, and rare to see these types of talents at that position hit the open market. Now, will he hit the open market is a question. And then secondly, rundowns have been an issue for him. So how effective is he, on those rundowns? So I really like this group. I mean, even guys like DJ Reader, Jerron Reed, Malik Collins. I mean, there are some Derek Wolfe. Tight end and D-line, Joey. Those seem to be the two positions for me in free agency that I think have nice depth and match up to the Colts' needs.
Then lastly, let's finish with cornerback. Not as deep or as big of names on this list.
No, not really. And I guess that's okay. It's not the biggest need in the world for the Colts. I always think, if I'm running the operation, I'm looking at a corner every year. Can we upgrade? Is there something that, more of a shadow role, more of a slot guy, more of a zone guy, whatever you want to say there. Byron Jones is probably the biggest name, maybe outside of Chris Harris in the cornerback group, but I think Jones is a guy that has a little bit more long-term potential. There are a few of those, again, former number one picks. Eli Apple, whose mom probably doesn't make you want to sign him. Darqueze Dennard in Cincinnati. I think Mackenzie Alexander was a former high pick. Again, what can you find here? I think back to Darius Butler, second round pick, I think in 2009, I want to say, out of UConn, gets cut by the Patriots. I think he had a brief stop in Carolina, maybe. And the Panthers and Patriots both say no. The Colts sign him in the regular season in 2012, and he has a really nice run here. So, again, can you tap into any of that, whether it's different environment, different scheme, coaching, etc.? That's a big part of what free agency is about.
Cool. Let's do some Twitter questions.
Let's go.
All right, from Evan, what % chance would you give to Jacoby being traded this offseason if Rivers indeed signs and they draft a quarterback?
Oh, boy. If you do both, I would say
you'd have to.
Right?
Yeah.
This gets back into kind of our numbers crunch we had a few podcasts ago. If you didn't, Chad Kelly, I don't know where he'd go. From a number standpoint, teams carrying 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster for an entire season, that's pretty rare. And that would be some significant quarterbacks. I mean, we're talking Rivers, Brissett, and a draft pick. So, I would assume that that's likely. I mean, I know last year, as much as, I think I certainly was clamoring for a trade for Jacoby Brissett because I thought it could lead to decent draft capital in return. I think I was under the impression that Jacoby Brissett had a little bit more trade value around the NFL. He did not, really, at all. Quantity or quality. Quantity of trades, quality of return value you'd be getting. So don't expect much is what I'm saying. Like, if you were to move him, especially if you sign Rivers and you draft a quarterback, that lessens the trade value of Jacoby Brissett because your leverage is out the window. So, as long as that quarterback was drafted in the first 4 rounds, I'd assume that would happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Trade him back to New England.
Yeah.
They'd take him.
Boy. God, there's going to be so many quarterback dominoes.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's getting up to this has a feel of an NBA free agency.
Yeah. At the most important position in football, which we rarely say.
For sure. All right, from Brian, if the Colts don't make a move at quarterback, are there any wideouts and tight ends in the draft that could catch the ball that is thrown behind them consistently?
Well, I would hope, from a quarterback or a wideout standpoint, I love CeeDee Lamb. Mm-hmm. That's probably my favorite, which I know the Jerry Jeudy truthers want to kill me. But, the kid from Colorado, Chenault, the injury history worries me. I love what he can do after the catch. Arizona State, Brandon Ayuk, I believe is the pronunciation on that. Again, I am, and I posted this on 1075thefan.com on Monday, Joey, and the Ballard quote, it sounds so elementary, but he sounds like a fan talking at a bar. It was like, I need to find guys that get the ball and score.
Yeah. I don't get what's so hard about it.
Exactly. I'll do one more beer. One more beer. You know, it's like that's. He's right though.
Yeah.
You know, when is the last time the Colts have just had a dude that you throw a pass to, the pass travels 10 yards in the air, and that dude is going to go break 2 tackles?
See, this is football talk here. They've had a lot of guys, but they haven't had a lot of dudes. You need dudes.
Look at that. That was just spot on there by Joey Molinaro.
There's nothing better than guys being dudes,
no,
too. So
exactly.
You come full circle. Are we ready to move on to the next one?
I need to drink some water.
All right. Chris says, Chris here from Germany. I keep hearing how the Colts are an ideal team for a project quarterback like Love or Eason. Jacoby hasn't shown much improvement in 3 years. Do you really think the Colts are an ideal team for another project quarterback based on what we've seen with number 7?
Okay, fair question, and I think they are, you know. I think it's really hard to just all of a sudden pigeonhole like, oh, just because one quarterback doesn't develop doesn't mean other quarterbacks can't develop in under a similar coaching staff. For one, Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni definitely didn't handpick Jacoby Brissett. You know, he was traded for by Chris Ballard under a new coaching staff, and I think different quarterbacks have different ceilings. You know, Jacoby Brissett was looked at as a stopgap to get you through the 2017 season.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was looked at. You know, I don't think the Colts made that move and Chris Ballard was like, man, that guy can go on the side of Lucas Oil Stadium one day.
Yeah.
You know, like that just wasn't the move. So I don't think just because Brissett maybe hasn't taken massive strides that we all of a sudden should say, oh, Frank Reich can't develop quarterbacks. You know, maybe you need to get him a quarterback that has a higher ceiling, that has more developmental traits, that has traits that, as Ballard and Reich always put it, we need to find a quarterback that at 13, it's going to be impossible to find the quarterback that checks every trait. Can you find the one that checks traits that you don't think you can develop, but then has traits that you don't think you can develop, and then you can develop some other traits that all of a sudden turn this quarterback into the ideal package? That's what I think you have to find out in this draft class.
From Robbie, just wondered your thoughts on the UK games now they're really established. Also, with the Jags having 2 games this year, will the Colts make the journey again? The Jags are hosting the Bears and Steelers, which they have already said will be played in Jacksonville. That makes us one of 6 options.
Robbie, coming from, I believe, the UK. I don't know if you mentioned that in the question, but he DM'd me there. So the Steelers and Bears said they aren't.
It's already been confirmed that they are playing in that in Jacksonville.
So 33% chance. Wow. Well, a couple things about the Colts. I do feel like they are due for an international game soon. You know, 2016 was 4 years ago. You know, I guess I'll ask you this. You might already know it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the only NFL team that hasn't played an international game?
Packers.
God, you're good. You're good, man. You're really good. And people think all you do is impersonate famous people.
Well, my mom would be very disappointed that I can know that, remember that, but you know, I would get a D in math class.
Right.
So.
Yeah, or forget Aunt Judy's birthday or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, the Packers Colts this year at Lucas Oil Stadium. That's on the home schedule. Would the Colts have to give up a home game and go overseas?
Would that be like Mexico?
Maybe Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You know, it's something to where the Colts are one of
maybe.
The Colts are about, I want to say like half the NFL hasn't given up a home game yet. So there are a good amount of teams, because when the Colts went over there in 2016, they were giving up a home game. They were not giving up a home game. That was Jacksonville's home game. So I don't know if the attraction of Colts Jaguars overseas is really a great pull. But granted, I don't know how many other options you have with the 5 other teams. Let me look up Jacksonville's home schedule really fast here.
Yeah, they kind of screwed them there, not having the Bears Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, Bears and Steelers both have a large fan contingent, and obviously your Steelers getting back a Hall of Fame quarterback would help out that. Okay, Jacksonville plays these teams at home: Colts, Titans, Browns, Lions, Dolphins, Texans. Boy. Browns? Why not? Baker?
Might as well.
Throw him over there. Miami,
Might
Tua.
as well.
I don't know. That would make sense to me. So yeah, I mean the Colts have. It would not shock me at all if the Colts are playing internationally this year or next.
From Jake, do you think a guy like DJ Reader would be on the Colts' radar? Just 25 years old, was a Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate. Seems like a, quote, Ballard kind of guy.
Yeah, I like Reader. The only question I have is he more of kind of your run-stuffing Grover Stewart and less of your penetrating 3 technique that is a guy that's going to play every down? Now, I'm not acting like the Colts wouldn't be wise to potentially upgrade at that, more of the run-stuffing, kind of think of the nose tackle of your 3-4, but I just think when you talk interior of the defensive line, that 3 technique, more of the slender version of the D tackle, is a bigger need. But I really like Reader as a player, and I'm sure Houston wants to bring him back.
From Steve, he says, love the podcast, Kevin. Other than drafting a quarterback, what is a realistic offseason move you believe would most benefit the 2020 Colts? The draft, free agency, and re-signing are all options.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that comment. Appreciate you listening. And we've had a great turnout in Twitter questions throughout the offseason. So thank you to everyone out there for continuing and listening to Kevin's Corner. The biggest, Anthony Costanzo to a 4-year deal.
Lock him in.
I know some people might want to go Flash, might want to go Chris Jones, Clowney. Some people might want Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. I think because he said outside of drafting a quarterback, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think Costanzo means that much. What Costanzo does, Joey, is it saves so many dominoes of the attention you have to give on game day, where that need falls on the pecking order as you move into future off seasons, what it could do to Jacoby Brissett starting week 1 or a different quarterback starting week 1. You aren't bringing any free agent, any draft pick there is unknown. There is very minimal unknown with Anthony Costanzo. So that's why I'd go with him.
This name is just funny to me. From Spanky. I don't know. I'm 26 years old. That's a name like that, and I can't get through it without giggling a little bit.
One day you're going to grow up.
Funny after reading your article on what characteristics the Colts want in a quarterback, Brissett only has 2 of the 4. He's not accurate, and he doesn't process quickly. Holding on to the ball too long proves that. So why did they trade for him?
Again, that was stopgap. That was who's expendable out there.
It's either that or Scott Tolzien. So
right, and it was Scott Tolzien for a game.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that was, wow, Scott Tolzien really sucks, and for some reason, Stephen Morris just isn't going to cut it. I mean, that's what it was. Shout out to Philip Walker.
Yeah, big opening weekend.
4 tutties, I believe it was for him.
No more emails to us.
No.
Philip
Walker has been promoted or has been deactivated from the practice squad. Yeah, I again, that was a quick fix. It's who you're going to get at that point of the offseason, things like that. That article was written in reference to elite quarterbacks, the multiple traits that you're trying to find. Bless you, Ballard.
You're drafting or quarterbacks you're drafting, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. Not quarterbacks you're trading for in an emergency situation 10 days before the start of the season. So, yeah, when you talk about those traits outside of leadership and toughness, I don't think Brissett is achieving the other 2 big ones.
From Scott, I've heard you mention a, quote, leash in regards to Ballard. Do you really think this is a thing? I believe he is nowhere near that discussion yet, as he has done a fantastic job given the circumstances. I feel he is even 2 quarterbacks away from the hot seat. What say you?
Wow, 2 quarterbacks away from the hot seat. I couldn't disagree more with that. If you screw up 2 quarterback situations, you've got to go, because you screw up 2 quarterbacks, that means you haven't gotten to the playoffs. You haven't gotten far in the playoffs. I don't know what exactly that would mean, but it would mean that you haven't done things of substance under your watch. And, 2 quarterbacks gives you what, 8 more years? Good
Lord.
That would give you a long time. Now, I do think Scott's question, I don't totally disregard Scott's question at all. I actually think that the leash aspect, again, I don't agree with, the 2 quarterbacks, I disagree with that part. I think it's fair to ask, should there be a leash? And I totally hear Scott out on it, because I don't know where I even side on it. Because you lose Andrew Luck like you lost him. Again, does that extend? when I say leash, in my eyes, he's got Jim Irsay is walking around the park and he could wrap that leash around 15 trees. Like, it's a long, long leash. I'm not acting like it's a short one by any means, but, it is something that I think you're getting into the point where it is a fair question to at least ponder of how did the Luck retirement reassess Jim Irsay's thinking of his evaluation on Chris Ballard? Because if you do miss the playoffs this coming year, that's 3 out of 4 years missing the playoffs. Does that seat begin to get hotter? If you miss in free agency, or if you believe in Brissett for another year and then that doesn't work, other factors that could make that seat warmer. So, I think it's very fair to have a conversation about Chris Ballard and the job that he's done through 3 years. I think any general manager, honestly, you should have that. There are some people out there that say, "Oh, John Lynch got hired the same year Chris Ballard did, and look what's happened." Oof. Now, again, if Jimmy Garoppolo retires 2 weeks before the start of the season, what type of questions are you having at that point? So, I don't believe Ballard is on any sort of hot seat. This is a critical offseason. This is a critical year, and the seat can get a lot warmer. It's not, whatever. It's 28 degrees or whatever it is in Indy right now. It can
pretty good.
It can get above freezing and closer to spring type weather very quickly. That's life in the NFL. I mean, I'm sorry. That is life in the NFL.
Not for long, folks. That's what it stands for. From Chris, what players could we move to add more draft capital? Just a few solid players with decent value, 3rd, 5th round pick quality, to add more picks, which in turn helps us move up in the first round or back in the first round without losing all of our draft capital. Who's your ideal guys?
Joey, I got nobody.
That's tough.
You traded Henry Anderson for a 7th round pick. Henry Anderson's a damn good football player.
Mm-hmm.
You got a 7th rounder for him.
Mm-hmm.
Hassan Ridgeway, 7th rounder. If I said it on last week's air, 107.5 The Fan. If the Pacers could have traded TJ Leaf for a 6-pack of beer and Big League Chew, I would have done it. Like, teams know the value of your current players. I don't think Quincy Wilson is yielding you much more than a 6th-round pick. I'd be shocked.
Oh,
shocked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, why would you trade anyone that's going to yield you higher than a 6th-round pick? Why are you trading them?
Sure.
Everyone has value to this team.
Mm-hmm.
So that are, again, the higher level players. So, yeah, you aren't going to find that, really.
Right. All right. From Brett Stockglausner, our guy, he says, "You guys have inspired me to start a St. Louis Battlehawks podcast.
Oh, boy.
For all of us starved football fans in St. Louis.
I love it.
We're a few episodes in already. Any tips from the pros?"
Oh, boy. That's awesome, Brett. And I know there are several listeners that have their own podcasts, and I absolutely love it. You've got what? Too
many that I can count. Yeah, I got a lot.
I'm praying when I text you, "Hey, does this time work for you?" I'm please tell me that you aren't already recording or producing or doing both on other podcasts. I would say one thing Joey and I has really, really tried hard in the now approaching 200 episodes is to be interactive, and be consistent. Consistent with when you produce podcasts, the quality of the podcast, and interactive might be the most important aspect of it all. I think something that separates us from other podcasts is we take a large chunk of the time to hear fans, for multiple reasons. One, entertainment, because I love the variety of questions. And my mind doesn't go to all these places. My mind's in different spots. And It's great to hear different things that spark discussion in my mind of oh, yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. And also, I'm not acting like I've got all the answers. There are some extremely intelligent people that listen to this podcast on a very consistent basis. So I love hearing your thoughts, and then it gives me feedback, and that it kind of shapes how I go about my reporting and my covering of the team, and now I look into things that I didn't previously look into. So that's what I try to do here. That's what we try to do here, and Anything else you would add, Joey?
No, man. I think you hit the nail on the head with consistency and interaction, especially starting off. Because it's tough when you start any show unless you're already a known commodity or a known person. Right. At the start the numbers aren't going to look that great.
You are
probably.
building a platform,
and you got to build it, and you got to keep going. The only way to do that is by continuing to put stuff out.
And I think entertainment is a word that I feel like when we hear it, we almost always constitute humor with entertainment. It can be a huge element of it. There are entertaining podcasts because they are very humorous guest and host. But entertainment can also mean informative, interactive. It can mean multiple things. The key is finding the entertainment.
Right.
You got to find it somehow.
From Matt, Love, Lamb, Judy, and Kinlaw, all sitting there at 13.
Oh, boy.
Love these. Rank who you'd choose for the Colts.
Chris Ballard might say trade back. Trade back 2 spots and get one.
He does it on draft night. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
I'm team quarterback, so I would go with Love. So Judy, Lamb, and Kinlaw with the 3 others.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big draft wideout at 13. I'm not standing on tables for that. But I'm going to go with a caveat that I've taken care of interior defensive line in free agency, which lessens the importance of Kinlaw. So I'll go Lamb and then Judy.
And then Kinlaw.
Yeah,
okay.
and then Kinlaw.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool. Man, boy. If you could give Chris Ballard a card and say, these 4 guys are going to be there at 13, he'd be like,
yep.
Do your Chris Ballard impression. He'd say, hell yes.
I'm still working on that one. If I sit there, I could do it off the top. A little bit more difficult. All right, from Stan Cal. Would you rather have 2 picks in the middle of the first round, but lose most/all of our day 2 capital in the process, or remain with our current haul of draft picks and address a larger volume of needs?
Okay, Stan, easily one of our most intelligent. Does Stan work?
Well, according to his profile, he does, but he's got a lot of time to come up with some good stuff.
God, and I love it. All right, so Stan wants to go with this route. Would you rather have 15 and 16, or would you rather have 13, 34, 44, and 75?
Mm-hmm.
I would probably rather have 13, 34, 44, and 75.
Yep.
Because I'm a believer in Chris Ballard drafting. I am. Now, I know we've talked about it. There are hits, there are misses, and not all the second-round picks have turned into gold, and some of them have turned into guys that could wear a gold jacket one day. But just give me a few more darts, because I also like some of the depth of, this year proved it, Joey. I know the Colts didn't find that wideout, but, man, there are some second-round wideouts that came in here, and they saved your fantasy football season, And so I think the more darts in the early days I like, because I sit here and I think quarterback, potentially tackle, defensive line, and receiver.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
For sure.
And those are long-term at very key positions.
From Casey with a K, what are the advantages/disadvantages of signing a veteran free agent quarterback rather than staying with Brissett if there are no QBs in the draft that Ballard absolutely loves?
Okay, this is a good question. The advantage is obviously it helps you out in the immediate short term, and it makes you a better football team in the here and now. A guy like Rivers, he'd come in here and you wouldn't worry about the playbook. So that's where it helps you, because there are growing pains for a rookie quarterback, and there's more uncertainty with a rookie quarterback than there is with a free agent quarterback. So I think that's where it helps you. The grooming aspect isn't, I feel like if Phillip Rivers, that move were to happen, Chris Ballard would have to sit him down and be like, I know it might be against your personality, but you've got to groom our young QB. That's part of this 2-year deal that we'll give you $2 more million. But you've got to, you imagine someone saying $2 more million to be nice and help mentor
Answer
someone?
Some questions.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll take $2 to get a Pop-Tart and a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the advantage is. Run me back the second part of that question there.
Veteran free agent quarterback rather than staying with Brissett if there are no quarterbacks in the draft that Ballard absolutely loves.
The Colts are about to show their hand at quarterback. if they go out and sign a quarterback in free agency, I think it pretty much eliminates them trading into the top 10 to draft a quarterback. Maybe I should say more like top 5. But I think it takes that off the board. So in a way, the Colts will be showing their hand a little bit of saying what they like or don't like about this 2020 quarterback class. So again, we are approaching the period here in the next month of getting into what the Colts think about not only the free agent quarterbacks, but obviously the draftable ones as well.
From Sam, if the Colts move up in the draft, do you see them showing their hand and moving before the draft, or will they wait and see how the board falls?
So I do think it's a good question from Sam. Basically, he's asking, would they do what the Jets did a few years ago? St. Patrick's Day, the Jets trade up.
Yep.
And they say, screw it, we got to get above everybody. I don't think the Colts would do that, Joey. I mean, that is because think about it. If you're moving to the top 5, wouldn't that be Tua?
That's Tua territory.
And aren't you under the impression of you're waiting till the last minute on Tua because you need to see medicals, you need to see the pro day? So I don't like the Jets looked at it of like, we're going to go to frickin' 3 and we'll take, whoever falls to us. I don't think this draft necessarily has that sort of pecking order. So, yeah.
From Brian, if the 4 main quarterbacks, Burrow, Tua, Love, Herbert, of this draft are taken before the Colts, and the Colts aren't 100% sold on the other guys, Eason, folks like that, should they roll the dice and draft one anyway or wait until next year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have... I mean, outside of signing Bridgewater, maybe trading for Carr, I'd draft a quarterback at some point. Obviously, those moves would shift a lot of, exactly what value you need to put on that quarterback draft pick of like premium pick or middle-ish pick or late round pick. But I think it's time to draft a quarterback and just have a developmental piece that you have handpicked, you have selected. He's only coming into your environment, all of those things.
From Tommy, I'm sure you'll talk about it before you get to questions, but what do you make of Irsay's weird tweets over the weekend? Doesn't help that some sketchy sources tweeted out the same day that Irsay planned on reaching out to Luck in the near future. Just added fuel to the fire, and yeah, it did. I got a couple texts about it.
Oh, boy. So for those that missed it, I believe it was a capital L.
Couple capital L's in there.
And referencing the word luck.
Yep.
I didn't really follow everything.
It was a weird tangent, man.
Like talking about 2006 to 2012 and...
Like, why those years?
All right, I'm going to pull it up.
I was trying to decipher it way longer than I probably should have.
Yeah, trust me. I mean, I wasn't driving home from Nashville. My good buddy Brian Shelbourne was. And I looked at it and read it about 30 times, and I still didn't get it. Colts Nation, the horseshoe is good luck.
Capital L.
Capital L. Between 2006 2012, 6 short years, 2 home AFC championship wins, and hosting a LOS Super Bowl. As Dylan says, and then he goes into some song lyric.
And then he follows that up.
Oh, we can't help it if we're lucky, capitalizes that L.
From the Temptations.
Yeah. I mean, some people honestly might be like, cool on the Super Bowl, but like after 2009, what did you accomplish as a team from 2009 to 2012? Made the playoffs, but didn't win a game. You lost to the Jets in Peyton's last game, and then lost to the Ravens in Luck's first season. So, yeah, dude, I don't.
Weird. I mean, you can't help but at least.
Like, is he sitting there being like, watch this?
Right.
Watch my mentions?
I don't know.
I don't make anything really of it. I think the Colts have reached out. I think the Colts have checked up on Andrew Luck, and I think Andrew Luck has let him know his current intentions, and those would be he's content. He's content with his life. Sounds like he's healthy. His dad's mentioned that a lot on the podcast here with the XFL starting up. Said Luck is like a pseudo sounding board for him. He told him about Phil Walker.
Oh yeah.
He told his dad he thought Phil Walker would be a good choice for the XFL. So yeah, it just I can't see it happening, man.
From Harry, what's your best guess for quarterback 1 and quarterback 2, week 1, 2020?
Man, jeez. Brissett / drafted quarterback.
No free agent at all.
I don't think so. Free agent to me isn't the sexy move, right? Or is it? I mean, some people might say, "Wow, Philip Rivers." Woo-hoo.
I mean, unless it's Philip Rivers, big name obviously, but unless it's Bridgewater, it'd probably be the closest thing to like a sexy, nice.
But like the draft pick, it's like pizzazz, the unknown, the intrigue, the oh my gosh, is this Mahomes or Watson or is it Brandon Weeden?
Yes. From Elijah, would you rather have a very talented quarterback but with a bad attitude, somewhat like a Baker Mayfield? I don't know if he's very talented, or a less talented quarterback with a great attitude like Jacoby Brissett.
Neither.
Right. I will take Patrick Mahomes, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I guess you have a better chance at improving and developing the talent than developing attitude. I don't know. Can they mature in the NFL? Do you want to live through maturation stages at quarterback? Like, a quarterback can have it. Like, Philip Rivers strikes me as a guy that has a bad attitude, but he's damn passionate and damn fiery.
Yeah, competitive, all that shit.
You know, there is a difference. I know it sounds very cliche-ish, but like, I mean, I'm trying to think of like an NBA athlete that I feel like has a bad attitude. Like Russell Westbrook, bad attitude, but really competitive. So the competitive element, I'd love that guy to be on my team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bad attitude, it's like, all right, can you live with it? It's hard, though, at quarterback, because, I mean, so many other pieces are relying on. This isn't like Jerry Hughes is a bad attitude. Yes, he's just rushing the quarterback every play.
You're right.
So, I don't know. That's such a hard question. I'm going to cop out.
I like this one from Andrew Walker.
I'm not going to cop out. I'll take good attitude, mediocre talent, and I'll pray that I can develop the talent.
There you go. From our guy Andrew Walker, pick one. A round with Tiger at Augusta. Now that's where the Masters are. I think called played.
Oh my God.
Golfed, clubbed.
Your lack of golf knowledge is just. You don't even have like the elementary.
Hey man, I can counter with your lack of Star Wars and movie knowledge. All right,
fair. The Masters will be played at Augusta National.
Played at Augusta National. Okay, so play a round with Tiger at Augusta National, or you get free Donato's pizza a day for 5 years.
Oh my God. When I think of heaven on earth, this is what I think of. These scenarios.
I mean,
can I do both? Can we get Donato's after the round, Tiger and I?
Nope. It's an either or, man.
I had Donato's on Saturday.
So good. God.
Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta be.
Mm-hmm.
But man, my mouth is salivating.
I know.
Right now. Tiger.
Yeah.
I feel like Tiger would enjoy some Donato's.
Yeah.
He used to go to Perkins a lot for one of the waitresses.
Yeah. That was.
I probably had a meal or two.
Meal, yeah. Probably some dessert too. From Alex, what is up with Costanzo's decision? Seems like the longer the silence, the more likely he retires. Thanks and love the show.
Alex, this same thought has gone through my mind. We're approaching the time period, Joey, where I'm like, I thought we'd have a decision by now.
Yeah.
Now, like I've mentioned before on prior podcasts, if Costanzo has told the Colts that he's coming back, the Colts aren't going to announce that. They're going to wait till they get a deal done to announce that. Now, vice versa, you would think Costanzo, well, if he has retired, he would just announce it. Now, Costanzo's not a very social media. It's not like he's announcing his retirement on Instagram or anything like that. So, I don't know what to read into. You can give me arguments on both sides of it, and I could probably agree with that. we'll hear from Chris Ballard and Frank Reich in about 2 weeks. Maybe there's an update there. It doesn't sound like there is any update. It doesn't sound like there is a decision that has necessarily been made, or at least willing to share publicly, I probably should say. But for all parties involved, it would be very wise, I think, to have a decision.
From King James, not LeBron. King James, well, it's King James 23, but is it true that Phillip Rivers was spotted shopping for houses in Geist? Here we go.
I don't know about that. I think the bigger thing is enrollment for his kids in school next year. How many does he have?
I believe double digits.
God. Now he moved, right? He moved to the Florida Panhandle.
Moved to Florida. Yeah.
So people are doing the old, all right, he's close to Nashville. If they move on from Tannehill, he's close to Tampa Bay. Yeah, I don't know. I assume that's a fake question. Granted, didn't we get the Brady was looking at kids or looking at schools in the Nashville area?
Yep, that was Giselle.
Giselle was. Yep. Gotcha.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Brady.
Yeah.
Brady punching.
What would Rivers do? You think he just play somewhere and leave the family in Florida? I mean, if you just move the family to Florida, you're not moving them again for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you're going to be away for a long time. Like,
right. And
you're the quarterback. You're not. I saw Gerald McCoy, I believe, left his house in Tampa and just commuted from Carolina. But like, there's probably a lot more commitments of Gerald McCoy being around the facility than Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Or excuse me,
the other way around.
Other way around.
Yeah. I mean, as weird as that sounds, I feel like that does play a factor here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
unless
they're ready to move to Carmel and send them to St. Matthews. You know?
Right,
I mean,
right. My uncle used to be the priest of St. Matthews. Yeah. Okay.
From Hillary, if Vinny is retiring, would we have heard by now? What do you think's happening with him?
I think it's different than the Costanzo one, Hillary, because Vinny has made it clear that he wants to see how the rehab goes with his knee. And that's going to take a bit. So I don't think we're going to hear Vinny retirement news. I would expect Costanzo retirement or not news before Vinny, I should say. Now, maybe he starts rehabbing. He's just like, screw this. This is stupid. Like, let's go hunt. But I think there's at least more legitimacy of Vinatieri's got to wait and see how he feels physically, whereas Costanzo, I think it's more mentally.
From Aaron, will Phillip Rivers be another Kerry Collins if the Colts sign him? The big question to me with Rivers is while he will throw a ton of interceptions, will he be able to make the medium throws accurately to wide-open receivers Jacoby misses? I know Rivers threw for over 4,000 yards, not under 3,000.
Well, I think that's the upgrade. It's that you do have the quicker rhythm. You do have a guy that, if you look at the yards per attempt, which we know that's a key figure for Frank Reich and the staff, that yards per attempt for Phillip Rivers was pretty good last year. And again, that comes from consistently hitting the intermediate stuff while also dropping in a couple of chunks. But, man, Kerry Collins, Joey.
Oof. Yeah, bad times.
I don't know about that. That seems drastic.
Aaron Lopez says, hey, KB, what do you think of Taysom Hill? If the Saints let him go, would he be a possibility for the Colts?
Now, if you would have said, play golf with Tiger Woods at Augusta or get Donato's Pizza with Taysom Hill for the next 5 years, I might have said Donato's and Hill.
You are a big Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I like him. I saw he's demanding that he plays quarterback, or I don't know, demanding might be a strong word.
Going the Tebow route.
But yeah, he is going down that road. So I like him as a gadget player. I don't like him as anything more than that.
From Steven, how likely are the Colts to sign a free agent quarterback? Are they more likely to draft one instead?
I think more likely to draft one. If you really like Brissett as much as you say you do and love the leadership and all of that, I guess what you have to decide is this. Do you feel like a 2-year Phillip Rivers coupled with the draft pick is the route you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's actually a segment of the audience out there that would rather see Brissett than Rivers start because they feel like he's 38 years old. He's washed up. At least put the 27-year-old out there that maybe finds lightning in a bottle. Now, some people might be like, that's idiotic. Brissett, and Rivers are both on the same playing field. I don't care their ages. Let's just go with the drafted quarterback. But I would say draft higher than free agency because you still do have Chad Kelly as well. It's not like you're in this numbers crunch at quarterback that you just have to go out there and and you must sign multiple quarterbacks.
I like this one from Kevin Rudge, and this is the last one I have here, Kevin. What is more likely, trading up to draft Tua Tagovailoa or not drafting a quarterback at all?
That's a good one right there. Great job, Kevin. More likely? I think it's more likely they trade up and draft Tua.
Wow.
Not drafting a quarterback at all?
That's insane. It has to be, right?
I mean, you got so many picks.
You already had the top half, and you have so many picks, like you said.
Right. You see Mike Wells' bold prediction on ESPN.com?
Yep, I was about to.
Trade up for Tua. Again, bold prediction. No one go tweet at Mike Wells and say, "Hey, Bowen said this on your book."
Right.
All right. Isn't it kind of funny how we always act like people sound dumb on Twitter, like I just did, and they're all like really intelligent people that probably have great jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I apologize. Joshua, got a few more over here, Joey.
Okay.
Joshua, with Cincy, Miami, and LA needing QBs, where do you think the Colts need to trade up to secure one of the top 4? Carolina could also need a QB at pick number 7. Yeah, I would assume they need to get to 6. Honestly, to feel safe. You still got Jacksonville at 9, Detroit at 3. Oakland is right ahead of you, I think. And I feel like there's one more here. Josh, Rivers is like the anti-Brissett. He's got next-level cognitive skills and great accuracy, but he also has no escape ability. I think Rivers has a higher ceiling under Reich Sirianni, but also a lower floor if anything were to happen to our O-line protection packages. You know, it's a fair question. You know, how many, if you look at the sack percentages, Joey, from last year, this is very interesting. Jacoby Brissett was sacked at a higher percentage than Phillip Rivers.
Wow.
I don't think we would have guessed that.
No. Not at all.
Now, my fear is like, you know, what would happen if all of a sudden you were to lose a Costanzo or a Kelly or somebody significant? Then then your statue's getting exposed back there. So yeah, that'll be there are very contrasting playing styles and their fits into this offense with Rivers and Brissett. All right, man.
That's it.
That was a good little meaty pod.
Yeah.
For those of you that see a podcast pop into your feed tomorrow, which will be all of you, or if you listen to this over the weekend, disregard tomorrow, but we're going to do our annual Peyton's episode. So the Oscars were this past weekend. We'll hand out our awards for local, professional, college ranks. We're going to hand those out like we do each year. We'll be a much shorter podcast, but we always like to look back on the year that was in the city of Indianapolis and state of Indiana. And, yeah, we're going to do that on Wednesday, and then we'll be back again with our weekly Colts pods starting. Honestly, I think next week's pod, Joey, will be the last one until the Combine.
Crazy.
Because then after that, we'll be recapping Ballard and Reich. He's Joey Molinaro. I am Kevin. Joey Molinaro. It sounded like I said Joy, like it was your TV name. He's Joey Molinaro. I'm Kevin Bowen. We got to end this podcast. Everybody have a great rest of the week. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.